What is going on, everyone? My name is Benjamin Nowak, and this channel here is the Smallmouth Experience. Today's video, we're going to be talking about my favorite cold water lures, my favorite baits for when that water falls into that 40-degree range, 48, 49 degrees and below, to get these fish to trigger. And I know for a lot of you guys, you're pretty much ready to get your boat put away. You're pretty much ready to be done for the season. But if you can stand it, if you can stand to get out a couple more times this year, you have a shot at a really, truly giant bag of fish. I know my buddy Carl Hartwick just caught 29 pounds. Jeremiah Johnson out of Minnesota is catching like absolute mega bags, 29, 30-pound bags. Simcoe's popping off. There's a whole bunch of big fish that are biting right now. So if you can get out there on the water. No one else is going to be out there, and you have the shot at some really, really big fish. Now, today's video, we're just going to be talking about the lures that I like to use. I'm not going to try and go too much into the patterns, just kind of talk about the baits, how I'm fishing them, and why they're effective this time of year. Now, there's going to be a lot of slow-moving baits. This is the time of year when those fish start to group up deep. They start to get into their wintering patterns, and so a lot of times I'm going to be slowing down, dragging a bait, fishing a blade, and fishing some baits that are closer to the bottom. It's also going to be very much bait fish or goby oriented. I'm not fishing crawfish baits. Once that water temp falls below 50 degrees, I put those crawfish style baits away, and I'm looking for baits that imitate gobies and imitate bait fish that are still down there that these bass can really gorge themselves on. So the first presentation we're going to start with is my favorite presentation for the winter time, and that is a blade bait. This is something I've talked about a lot, but a blade essentially is a piece of metal with some lead on it and two treble hooks, and all you do is cast that thing out there, you let it sink to the bottom, and you fish it slowly along the bottom. This is a great imitation of a bunch of different types of bait fish. Can imitate a goby, can imitate a variety of different forage types regardless of where you live. And there's some really cool things you can do with this bait. Not only can you fish it horizontally, making a long cast and fishing it along the bottom, but you can fish it vertically as well. So if you're looking at fish on the graph, you can take this bait, you can drop it straight down on those fish and hold it in place to get some more bites. You can also play with color, and color is something with a blade bait that I think gets overlooked. A lot of people say fish a silver blade when it's sunny, fish a gold blade when it's cloudy, and keep it really simple. I like to mix in a white blade when it's cloudy and a chartreuse blade when that water gets off color, because I do think a lot of times once those fish are in their winter holes, they're pretty much there to stay. Now, this is an effective technique because it imitates a variety of different forage, but it also creates a really tight vibration when you lift this thing, and it causes those fish to feed. It causes those fish to react to this thing. So even though it's slow moving, it is a reaction style bait. You can get these fish to trigger when they won't trigger on anything else with a blade bait. And so this is my #1 cold water lure. Rod I'm throwing it on is a TFO 7.3 medium rod, 15-pound test braid to 8-pound fluorocarbon line, high-speed gear ratio spinning reel. That way you're able to pick up slack really quickly with this presentation and get these fish to the boat. I have really comprehensive blade bait videos. If you guys want to check them out, I'll leave them linked up here in the corner for you guys to go check out. But that is my #1 technique in cold water situations. Techniques 2 and 3 are actually going to be really, really similar. They're both going to be dragging some sort of slow moving bait along the bottom. Like I said, I'm doing goby imitations, I'm doing bait fish imitations, and this here is a little darter style bait. It's a Berkley Power Bait Pit Boss rigged on a 3/8 ounce head, and what I'm going to do with this thing is slowly drag it along the bottom. I'm looking to imitate a bait fish or a goby that is just slowly kind of crawling or cruising along the bottom, and it really has very, very limited action. As you can see, I pulled off both these pinchers on the side. You can also use your standard darter like your Poor Boys darter, your DS darter, or you can pour your own like I do as well from Do It Molds. But really you're looking for something that has very limited action. It doesn't move a lot of water. It just basically kind of gets down there and crawls along the bottom and sits in front of those fish's face. Metabolism slowing down. You just want to take something that moves very limited water and drag it along the bottom. The other one is fishing a small tube. This is a Howie's Baits 2 3/4 inch tube. It's a small tube with a fat head, and just gets a lot of bites this time of year. Like I mentioned in my fall time fishing video, I prefer to go to a tube this time of year over a Ned rig because I just feel like you get more big bites. With a Ned rig, you can catch kind of everything that lives in the area. With a tube, you tend to catch a little bit bigger quality fish. So using a small finesse style tube like this, you can get a lot of those bigger bites a little bit more effectively. Now with both of these techniques, I'm going to be fishing them slowly along the bottom, and I'm going to be fishing them on totally different setups. The darter, or this little Pit Boss, I'm going to be throwing on a bait casting setup, and the reason that I like that is that I can fish it on a little bit heavier line. I can upsize the head to keep it on bottom and not have to worry about breaking off quite as much, which is what I really like. This to me is basically a little bit more of a power fishing technique than that tube, where I'm just going to be dragging this along, but I can go with a little bit heavier head, really get good feel with what's down there. And so this is one of those techniques that I'm going to be throwing on a bait casting setup. I'm going to be using 12 pound test fluorocarbon line, upsizing a little bit, and a high speed gear ratio reel. This is an 8:0:1 reel. This is my highest speed gear ratio reel that I own. And the biggest thing there, you want to be able to pick up line quickly and get those fish kind of turned and moving to the boat. The rod that I'm throwing this on is actually what's called a 7-foot cranking rod, but all that really means is it has a softer, deeper bend into the rod. I like that because I'm fishing these finesse hooks. When I'm fishing deep water with an open hook, a lot of times I'm fishing a lighter wire hook. So having a crankbait rod is going to make sure I can get good penetration of that hook, but not bend that hook out. And for that tube, I'm throwing it on a 713 TFO rod. And the reason I like that 7-1 medium light rod is because I'm using a really light wire hook. This is a Gamakatsu 111 light wire hook on a 3/8 ounce tube head. And then I'm using a high speed gear ratio spinning reel. This is the Abu Zeta. It's a 6:2:1 gear ratio reel, 15 pound test line to 8 pound test fluorocarbon. It's going to keep that bait down there, allow me to pick up line quickly. You're going to hear me talk about this. You want to be able to pick up line in deep water and get these fish moving to the boat once you set the hook. So using a high speed gear ratio reel is pretty much consistent through all of these bottom dragging techniques. And finally, one of the biggest misconceptions about the fall is that you can't catch them shallow. You can't catch them on a moving bait, but that's not true. One of my favorite ways to catch those shallow fall fish is on a crankbait, and this is a Berkley Dredger 14.5 or 10.5. You're really going to base that depending on the depth that you're fishing, but I like to fish a crankbait fast during the fall when you get those really warm, sunny days. It's going to warm up that shallow water quickly, so I always have a crankbait tied on and ready to go. Like I mentioned, Dredger 10.5 and 14.5. Perch color, natural colors are going to be my favorite during the fall. And the rod that I'm going to be throwing that on is a brand new rod from TFO called the Tactical Glass Cranking Rod. This is a composite cranking rod, 7'4", medium heavy, which I like because I can really make bomb casts with this thing, get this bait way away from the boat. But when that fish bite, it loads really deep into the blank, and that helps me keep these fish pinned on treble hooks. So this TFO Tactical Glass Cranking Rod has been probably my go-to rod for the season. I've used it for everything from lipless crankbaits to medium divers and a bunch of different things in between, and it's just a phenomenal rod. Then I'm throwing that on a cranking reel. It's a 6:4:1 gear ratio cranking reel, 14 pound test fluorocarbon line. I kind of want to upsize with that. I want to be able to fish that bait along the bottom, and by upsizing my line, I don't really have to worry about breaking off near as much. And again, that medium diving crankbait is a phenomenal way to catch them when those fish are moving up shallow and feeding during the fall time. Don't be afraid to throw a crankbait on those really warm sunny days in shallow water, like less than 10 foot, because those fish will still be up there, they will still be eating. And so going to a moving bait is a great way to get them to trigger, even when that water seems to be very, very cold. So you don't always have to slow down, but most of the time I'm going to be throwing slower moving techniques. Again, a blade bait, a darter, a tube, and a crankbait are my 4 go-to cold water fishing lures. These are my cold water techniques and the baits that I have a lot of confidence in during the fall. I'm curious, what do you guys like to throw during the fall? What do you guys enjoy throwing in the fall to go out and catch a lot of big fish? I've talked to a bunch of people. My buddy Aaron Diddy throws some blade baits that are kind of sneaky, and there's some other techniques that really catch a lot of big fish, so I'm curious to know what you guys do. If you guys have any questions or comments, hit me up in the comment section below. Also, all of the baits and techniques and the gear that I use will be linked down in the comment section, so go down there, check that out. It'll be at the top pinned comment and in the description for you guys to go check out. Again, thank you guys for watching. As always, take care, tight lines. God bless. Pursue your passion.